For our 10th anniversary, my husband Mark gave me a book. It was leather-bound, with our names, Mark and Sarah, embossed in gold on the cover, and my first thought was how romantic. It wasn't until I opened it and read the first line that I realized it wasn't our story he had written, but his. The dedication read, "For Chloe, my sun and stars. Our first decade." My breath hitched. Chloe. Chloe. My best friend since we were nervous freshmen sharing a dorm room, the maid of honor at my wedding, the godmother to the children we never had. It had to be a mistake. A sick, twisted joke. My fingers trembled as I turned the page, the thick, creamy paper feeling obscene under my touch. The first chapter was titled The Spark. It began 10 years ago, the week after our honeymoon in Bali. My Mark, the man I had just pledged my life to, described a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I remembered that day. I was stuck at the office, drowning in blueprints for a new library, a project that would later win me a promotion. I'd called him, telling him I'd be late, and he'd sounded disappointed but understanding. "No worries, babe. I'll just chill," he'd said. According to his beautifully scripted words, chilling had involved calling Chloe over to help him unpack the last of our wedding gifts. He wrote about the way the dreary afternoon light caught the gold in her hair, the way her laughter was a melody that cleared the storm in his soul. He described, in painstaking, poetic detail, their first kiss. It happened in our kitchen, the one I had designed, with its custom cabinetry and slate countertops. He wrote that kissing her felt like coming home, while kissing me, his wife of 1 week, had already started to feel like an obligation. I slammed the book shut, a strangled gasp escaping my lips. The gold lettering of our names seemed to mock me. This couldn't be real. Mark was a financial advisor, methodical, pragmatic, not some tortured poet pouring his heart out. He bought me sensible gifts, like a new set of tires for my car or stocks in a promising tech company. This extravagant, personalized book was so out of character that the sheer rawness of it made my head spin. But the details, they were too precise. He mentioned the specific brand of coffee they drank, a single origin Ethiopian blend Chloe adored and I found too bitter, the movie they watched that night, a cheesy rom-com I'd refused to see, the smudge of flour on her cheek from the cookies they'd baked. It was all there, a parallel life lived in the shadows of my own. My heart hammering against my ribs, I forced myself to keep reading. I had to know. I had to see the whole, ugly picture. I skipped through the pages, the dates at the top of each chapter marking the relentless passage of time. Chapter after chapter, it was a chronicle of their love affair, woven into the fabric of our marriage. There was the time he feigned a nasty stomach bug to get out of my family's Thanksgiving dinner. He'd spent it with Chloe, having their own intimate feast. He described feeding her turkey and mashed potatoes, calling it the most authentic Thanksgiving of his life. I remembered bringing him bland toast and ginger ale in bed, my heart aching with sympathy for his supposed suffering. He wrote about the weekend trips they took while I was at architectural conferences, the expensive jewelry he bought her paid for from our joint account that she'd passed off to me as family heirlooms, the antique sapphire earrings she wore to my 30th birthday party, a gift from my husband, a token of their true love. I remembered complimenting them, and Chloe had smiled, a sad, knowing little smile I hadn't understood at the time. "They have a lot of history," she'd said. The audacity of it stole the air from my lungs. Every shared memory I cherished was tainted, rewritten from his perspective as a burdensome charade he had to endure to get back to his real life with her. Our vacation to Italy. A week of tedium, punctuated by stolen, passionate phone calls with Chloe. The night I won the prestigious Harrison Award for my library design. He wrote that my joy was childish, and all he could think about was the way Chloe's eyes lit up when she was proud of him. The narrative was dripping with a sickening, self-aggrandizing romance. He painted himself as the tragic hero, trapped in a loveless marriage with a cold, career-obsessed woman, me, finding solace in the arms of his soulmate. He twisted my ambition into a flaw, my independence into neglect. He was a master of manipulation, not just in life, but on the page. He was writing the story where he was the protagonist and I was the villain. I finally reached the last chapter, my hands slick with sweat, my vision blurred by tears I refused to let fall. It was dated that very morning. This morning. He must have written it while I was in the shower, getting ready for our anniversary dinner. The chapter was titled The Anniversary Clause. It wasn't a memory. It was a proposal, a business proposition. He wrote, with the same cold, calculated precision he used to manage his clients' portfolios, that the past decade had been a trial period. He and Chloe had tested their love and found it to be unbreakable. Now, it was time to merge their assets. He explained that he couldn't simply leave me. A divorce would be messy and, more importantly, expensive. He'd spent the last 5 years carefully and legally moving all of our joint assets into a series of trusts and offshore accounts under his name alone. The house we lived in, the one I'd poured my heart into renovating, it was owned by a corporation and he was the sole shareholder. My architecture firm, which he'd helped me set up as a business. He was a silent partner with a majority stake, a detail buried in the fine print of the incorporation documents I had been too trusting to scrutinize. I was, in his words, financially redundant. And then came the clause, the final, brutal twist of the knife. He was offering me a choice. Option A, I could accept the new reality. We would remain married, but Chloe would move in. We would become a modern family. He wrote that he would be generous, allowing me to continue living in the house and maintaining my current lifestyle. We would be a throuple, a harmonious unit built on his terms. He actually used the word synergy. Option B, I could refuse. If I chose to leave, I would walk away with nothing. Just the clothes on my back and my personal effects. He made it clear that any legal challenge would be fruitless. He had the best lawyers money could buy, and he had spent years constructing an impenetrable financial fortress. He warned me that a legal battle would not only leave me bankrupt but would also ruin my professional reputation, as he would exercise his power as the majority partner in my firm to oust me. The book fell from my hands, hitting the plush carpet with a soft thud. The silence in the room was deafening. He had not only cheated on me for our entire marriage, he had plotted my destruction. This wasn't just infidelity, it was a psychological assassination. The book wasn't a confession, it was a declaration of war. He hadn't just broken my heart, he had caged me. He thought he knew me. He thought I was the thoughtful, trusting Sarah who would either crumble in despair or meekly accept his monstrous offer. He had analyzed me like a stock, predicting my every move. And for 10 years, I had let him. I had been so focused on our life, our future, that I had failed to see the viper I was sharing a bed with. But an architect knows a few things. We know that even the most formidable structures have a weak point. We know how to read blueprints, how to find the cracks in the foundation. And as I sat there, the shock slowly receding, a cold, hard resolve began to form in its place. He had written his story. Now, I would write mine. And it would be a tragedy, all right, but he would be the one falling. The first step was to play the part he'd cast for me. I had to be the shattered wife. When Mark came home that evening, holding a bouquet of my favorite lilies, I had the book open on my lap, tears streaming down my face. I played the role of a lifetime. How could you? I sobbed, my voice cracking perfectly. He knelt before me, his expression a carefully crafted mask of sympathy. Sarah, baby, I know this is a shock, he said, his voice smooth as velvet. I didn't want to hurt you. This is the only way for us to be honest. For all of us to be happy. He actually tried to take my hand. I flinched, pulling away as if burned. Haggy, you've been lying to me for 10 years. With Chloe, my best friend. The drama played out exactly as he must have imagined it. I screamed, I cried, I threw a vase against the wall, a cheap one. I was already thinking strategically. He absorbed it all, playing the patient, understanding man forced to make a difficult choice. He gave me space, told me to take my time, to think about his generous offer. That night, he slept in the guest room, believing I was a broken woman weighing her options. He had no idea that as soon as I heard his snores, I was at my desk, my laptop open, my mind working with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I was an architect. I designed systems. It was time to deconstruct his. My first call was to my cousin, Liam. Liam was the family's black sheep, a genius hacker who had a few run ins with the law in his youth but now worked as a cybersecurity consultant for a very private, very wealthy clientele. He lived by his own moral code, and that code was simple: family first. Liam, I whispered into the phone, huddled in my walk in closet. I need your help. It's Mark. I gave him the short, brutal version. He was silent for a moment, and then he let out a low whistle. The man's got balls of brass and a heart of lead, he said. What do you need, Sarah? I need everything. I need to get inside his digital life. Emails, bank records, everything he used to build this cage around me. I need the blueprints to his fortress. Consider it done, Liam said, a grim satisfaction in his voice. He won't know what hit him. While Liam went to work in the digital trenches, I focused on the physical world. Mark was a narcissist, and narcissists love trophies. His office, a sleek, minimalist space downtown, was his temple. I knew he kept meticulous records, not just for his clients, but for his own shady dealings. He was too arrogant to believe anyone would ever dare to look. The next day, I told Mark I needed to get away for a couple of days to clear my head, to a spa retreat upstate. He was thrilled, thinking his plan was working, that I was softening. He even booked it for me on our credit card. The irony was delicious. But I didn't go to a spa. I went to a nondescript electronics store in a neighboring town and bought a set of high-end Logix, a miniature camera, and a voice-activated recorder. I spent the next 48 hours in a cheap motel, watching YouTube tutorials and practicing on the motel room door until my fingers were sore. Meanwhile, Liam was a ghost in Mark's machine. He sent me a secure file that was a treasure trove of filth. Mark hadn't just moved our assets, he'd been running a sophisticated scheme, advising his wealthy clients to invest in shell corporations that he secretly owned. He was skimming from the people who trusted him with their fortunes. It was highly illegal and brilliantly concealed. This was the leverage I needed. It was no longer just about the infidelity, it was about his entire empire. And then there was Chloe. Liam found years of emails between them. They weren't just love letters, they were a running commentary on my pathetic, oblivious existence. They mocked my clothes, my laugh, my work. Chloe, my sweet, insecure friend, was a viper. In one email, she wrote, I don't know how you stand to touch her. When you come to me after being with her, I feel like I have to scrub the scent of her desperation off you. That one hurt. But it also fueled the fire. I had to get to her. I came back from my spa trip looking pale and subdued. I told Mark I was considering his proposal, but I needed to talk to Chloe. Alone. He readily agreed, seeing it as another step toward his victory. I met Chloe at our favorite cafe, the one where we'd spent countless hours sharing secrets over lattes. She walked in, her face a mask of nervous pity. Sarah, I am so sorry, she began, reaching for my hand. I let her take it. I just have one question, Chloe, I said, my voice quiet. Why? She launched into a prepared speech about an undeniable connection, about fate, about how she never meant to hurt me. I let her talk, letting my silence unnerve her. When she was done, I slid a single piece of paper across the table. It was a printout of an email from her to Mark. The one about scrubbing my scent off him. Color drained from her face. Where did you get this? That doesn't matter, I said, my voice turning to ice. What matters is that I have hundreds more. I also have a fascinating record of Mark's business dealings. Did you know he has a shell corporation registered in your name in the Cayman Islands? It seems you're not just his lover, you're an accomplice to federal crimes. Her eyes widened in genuine panic. She was in over her head. She was a pawn in his game, and she hadn't even known the rules. What do you want? She whispered, her hands trembling. Your cooperation, I said. Mark has a ledger. A physical one. I've seen it once, a small, black moleskine notebook. He calls it his insurance policy. It contains the real details of his scheme, the account numbers, the names. I need you to find out where it is. She was trapped, and she knew it. Betraying Mark was now her only path to self-preservation. The climax came a week later, on the night of Mark's company's annual gala. It was the biggest night of his professional year. He insisted I come, to present a united front. I agreed, wearing a stunning red dress that made his eyes pop. He thought it was a sign of my surrender. Chloe, as my supportive best friend, was also there. As Mark took the stage to give the keynote address, basking in the applause, Chloe slipped me a note. His office. In the floor safe, behind the fake power outlet. The code is our anniversary. Their anniversary, of course. I feigned a sudden migraine and told Mark I needed some air. His eyes barely flickered from the adoring crowd. I was a solved problem, an asset to be managed. He waved me away. Getting into his office building was easy. The security guard knew me. Picking the lock on his office door took me less than 30 seconds, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. I found the fake outlet, pried it open, and there was the safe. I entered the date of their first tryst, and the safe clicked open. Inside was the black moleskine. I didn't take it. I took pictures of every single page with my phone. Then I added my own little touch. I placed the voice-activated recorder I'd bought, now fully charged, inside the safe before closing it. I returned to the gala just as Mark was finishing his speech, full of platitudes about trust and integrity. I raised my champagne glass to him from the back of the room. He gave me a smug, triumphant smile. The next morning, I made my move. While Mark was at the gym, I packed a single bag. Then I sat down at his desk and sent an email. It went out to every single one of his clients, the board of directors at his company, and the partners at my architecture firm. The subject line was simple, regarding Mark and Chloe. The email contained a link to a secure, beautifully designed website I had spent the last week building. It was my counter-narrative. The homepage featured a photo of the dedication page of his book, For Chloe, My Son and Stars. The website was divided into sections. The affair featured excerpts from his journal, juxtaposed with Chloe's emails. The fraud contained the photos of his ledger, with a clear, concise explanation of his financial crimes, written by Liam. The anniversary clause laid out his ultimatum to me in his own words. I ended it with a personal note. He wrote a book about his truth. This is mine. He gave me 2 options. I'm choosing a third. I hit send. Then I made one phone call to the SEC whistleblower hotline. I was gone before Mark got back from the gym. I watched the fallout from a hotel room 2 states away. It was a bloodbath. His clients revolted. The board called an emergency meeting and suspended him. The SEC froze his assets. His life, so meticulously constructed, crumbled into dust in a matter of hours. Chloe, in a desperate attempt to save herself, went straight to the authorities and agreed to testify against him in exchange for immunity. The recorder I'd planted in his safe caught a beautiful, panicked conversation between them, Mark threatening her, her sobbing, both of them incriminating themselves further. Mark tried to retaliate, of course. He tried to freeze me out of my own company, but the other partners, armed with the proof of his financial manipulation of our firm, voted unanimously to buy out his shares for $1 and remove him from the partnership agreement. The last I heard, he was facing a mountain of federal charges, his reputation destroyed, his freedom hanging by a thread. He gave me an ultimatum: accept his twisted family or leave with nothing. He never considered that I would leave with everything that mattered: my integrity, my freedom, and the satisfaction of knowing I had dismantled him piece by piece. I don't know what my future holds. I've lost my husband and my best friend, and my belief in fairy tale endings is shattered. But as I sit here, looking at the skyline of a new city, I feel a sense of peace. He thought he was the author of my story. But in the end, I was the one who got to write the final chapter. And my story is just beginning. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and give this video a like. We appreciate everyone and can't wait to bring more stories your way.